All right. Good morning and welcome to the Spotlight session on collaborative environmental innovation. I'm Achim Haug, founder and CEO of AirGradient, and joining me is Anthony Mockler, data scientist from UNICEF East Asia Pacific Regional Office. We will present how impactful projects are enabled by open source solutions and support human and community rights. I will first share the open source advantage in environmental monitoring with examples of how our approach empowers communities worldwide. And then Anthony will present how AI models can better advocate for children's rights to clean air in Laos. And this showcases our collaboration that combines affordable air quality monitors with artificial intelligence. And then after these both short presentations, we will open for questions and discussions. So now, why does this matter? Every day, over 100 children under 5 years old die in the East Asia Pacific region with causes linked to air pollution. And access to accurate air quality information remains very limited, especially in many of these regions. So at the end of this session, I hope you will have a blueprint in mind on how a focus on open source solutions could become a model where communities own their environmental data, where open source hardware meets open machine learning and artificial intelligence, and where the right to know what you are breathing becomes a reality for everyone. So let me begin with AirGradient story, which I think is quite unique, and then followed by a presentation from Anthony, and then a QA session at the end. Great. So let me see if that works. Yeah, this is my presentation here. So how did it start? In 2019, I was on a sabbatical from a very stressful previous job. And we were living in northern Thailand, or we are living in northern Thailand. And then I took this picture from the terrace of my house in 2019. So this is the so-called burning season in Thailand. I think many of you might know who are living in the area. It's not only in Thailand, it's all in the neighboring countries. And 2019 was really, really bad. I was volunteering at my children's school. I could see how the whole community struggles with this massive influx of hazardous air quality. And for the people who are not familiar with, we are talking around like 30, 40, or 50 times the WHO recommended annual levels on air pollution. So it's a massive health hazard. So we started as a volunteer project. I was building air quality monitors with children at my kids' school. We even built like big air purifiers, DIY, that we could bring down the air quality in the gymnasium. And then we looked at the bigger picture, like what are actually causing these air pollution episodes, these wildfires, and we organized a workshop at the school where we invited 5 local Thai high schools to come for a 2-day workshop with firefighters that brought the children into the forest. We had advocacy experts that actually really underlined that no matter how old you are, you have a right for clean air. It's a fundamental right that you can stand for, that you can demand, basically, from your community, from your government. And with this, we got more and more traction as a volunteer project. And at some point, I didn't really feel like I want to go back to my old job. So we founded AirGradient basically to support this mission. So we really see ourselves as a social impact-driven business. So what we do today, like 6 years later, is basically we have around 25 employees. We are still doing air quality monitors, like from the very start. It's in our DNA. So far, we sold around 50,000 monitors into 80 countries. And we have one really interesting uniqueness that's coming on the next picture and next slide. These are just how our air qualities look like. So we have indoor and outdoor, but this one is the real important thing here. So all our products are open source hardware. And for the ones who maybe struggle a little bit with this term, what it means is you can go to our website. You don't even have to register, and you can download everything you need to produce these, tested and certified air quality monitors yourself. So you will see the firmware code, you will see the electronic schematics in a way that you can directly feed that into a production machine. You can see the enclosure files to either 3D print or make your own mold and build this whole air quality monitors yourself. And what's also really important is this CCBYSA. This means you can actually also sell them. You can make a profit with them, and you don't have to give out any money. So obviously that's a very unusual thing to do for a company, because a company normally thinks, okay, how can I actually protect my IP? How can I protect my secrets? How can I make sure that others cannot copy our products? No? And in a way, we are doing exactly the opposite through this open source hardware approach. And yeah, why are we doing this? And I think a little bit is coming through already with how we started as this, like we have this massive air pollution invasion into the school, into the classrooms. What can we do? And it's not only a thing that happens in Thailand, it's something that happens globally. You see every few months big highlights in the news. We had the LA wildfires in Pasadena, for example, at the beginning of the year, and so on. So later on, if you come to our booth, you can pick up one of my business cards, and what you will see is on the back side, this one here. So one of the reasons why we're doing this is we feel we cannot tackle this massive problem alone. Okay, like not a single company can fix air pollution globally. It's just impossible, no matter how big you are. So we feel by just openly sharing our designs, our schematics that we have very well tested, we can help other companies or organizations to actually improve their management of air quality, or like in their product development and so on. So it's really the key point, which I will come back more and more throughout this short presentation, is like it's about maximizing impact. And we find this open source approach really helps us maximizing it, and I will come through a few examples there. So one thing, I think open source gives you better value. And based on this example with the air quality monitors, what does this mean in practice? So first of all, we are doing kind of so-called low-cost air quality monitoring. So typical monitors cost maybe around $300 and up. And you can actually get our monitors for like $125 as a kit. That's easy to assemble. And even the fully tested one is around $200, substantially cheaper than what you typically find in the market. But the open source hardware aspect is not only about like the original kind of the sticker price. It's also things like, are you able to repair this monitor? Like, can you extend the lifetime? And with this open source hardware approach, you can basically very easily fix it. There are no proprietary modules. You can easily open it. You can fix it. And then I think what's also, and we see this more and more, like I'm not sure who remembers the time where you could go into a shop and buy a CD to listen to music. I think that's somehow over. You have to pay a subscription. And I think that trend is also not stopping anywhere. So the open source approach also doesn't lock you into a platform. So you can either use our platform, it's totally optional, or you send the data to your own server. But I think what people often miss is how much traditional companies actually spend money to lock down their systems. Okay, so we don't have to spend that money, and that in the end makes our products cheaper and more affordable. So there's a lot of benefit in, or a lot of these open source aspects really provide better value in the end for the customers. Now, next step is open source for capacity building, and I think that's very close, especially to the region here, where we still see very often, like technologies dominated from the global north, with very little influence on how we can actually understand and shape certain products. And I just want to show two or three pictures here. So with this open source hardware aspect, and we actually also offer the monitors as a kit that you can assemble, we are running worldwide workshops where we actually teach groups to build their own air quality monitors. I mean, we are basically giving away all our knowledge. We are trying to encourage others to take this as a base and then make their own adjustments and build their own monitors. On the right-hand side, you see a recent project we did with UNDP, the Global Center in Singapore. We actually developed an open source air quality monitoring toolkit. And one of the reasons they chose us to develop this was that because all our products are already open source hardware. So this is really something about skills development. In the end, it's a right for work, which is a human right. That's connected with, I think, very strongly with this capacity building. So open source I think is a great base for this. Then I think what maybe something we actually realized more on the path that we started to went down, that actually open source really leads to better collaborations. And maybe let me just show a few icons. I think that's a mandatory must in every presentation. But why does it lead to better collaboration? And I'm sure Anthony will also dive into this a little bit in a minute. With being open source, by definition, you basically don't have secrets. And not having secrets builds trust. So a lot of these collaborations that we have on all levels, it starts with very, very local grassroots organizations fighting for clean air in Kenya, for example, in their village, like these projects like UNDP, the World Bank, or UNICEF, is that as a partner, as a private sector partner doing open source hardware, by definition, it's becoming very non-commercial in a way and very, very productive because we are focusing on the best solution for the communities. Open source also means true ownership. I'm not sure if you noticed this, but there's a kind of creeping trend that you think you own something, but actually you don't own it. Okay, so if you read license terms of certain products that you buy, you might actually find out that you actually don't really own the thing that you purchased. Now with more and more proprietary artificial intelligence models, the data actually also becomes more valuable. So more and more actually of our competitors in the environmental monitoring space don't allow you who actually purchased an air quality monitor to own the data. And that obviously has potentially a lot of effects down the road. And if I put it to the point, just imagine you buy a new smartphone and then Apple or Samsung or whoever produced it at some point would say, well, we own all the pictures you take with that smartphone. At that point, you would probably say, no, that's not good. But actually, like something similar actually happens with the data space. Now, here you see on data ownership. So we have a partnership with OpenAQ. It's the biggest repository for air quality data worldwide. And here you can just see like the AirGradient monitors that our community members that basically deployed them are sharing their data with OpenAQ. And that enables a lot of interesting projects down the road that also I think Anthony will dive in. So to wrap this up a little bit, so open source really enables human rights. And I want to just highlight two aspects here that were already shining through the initial case study, basically. So we have obviously the economic rights. So we have affordable access. We have like monitors at a fraction of proprietary models at a much lower cost. We have all these capacity building. I think that's a huge aspect of the open source approach that communities can learn to build and maintain. And also we have actually a lot of communities that bring in their local needs that normally a big company doesn't address. So for example, in some parts of Africa, theft is a problem. So actually some of the community members made some addition to the monitor to prevent it from being stolen or dismantled and things like this. And then obviously really this technical training, skills development. I think another human rights enabler is really around the topic of transparency and accountability. So I mentioned open data. So what happens is that if a community has an air quality problem and you give them these tools to analyze or access and analyze the data, they can make a case, in their community, towards the city or towards the government for the right for clean air. And that data really, really empowers the communities and then enables them to, basically protect their human right for clean air. And also, the open source aspect also makes it less vulnerable, because if the government comes and say, look, I don't trust this monitor, maybe it does some tricks, the firmware is open, the code is open, it can be audited, it can be verified, and in the end, it can also be improved because it's open. So I think in the end, we can really say open source transforms power relationships from corporate-controlled black boxes to community-owned governance, and I think that's especially interesting for, like global South countries. So with this, I would like to hand over to Anthony.
Thanks, Akim. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. G'day, everyone. My name's Anthony, and I'm a data scientist and artificial intelligence researcher based in the UNICEF Frontier Data Lab here in Bangkok. So today, I'm going to take you through a story of how we created the first open AI model for estimating air pollution in Laos, and how some of the philosophy that Akim started to talk about around open source, open data, and open models was not just a key enabler to making this project possible, but also one of the reasons that we have a lot of confidence that it can be embedded and scaled. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how this approach ensures a rights-based approach to air pollution estimation, and how we think about these kinds of AI models generally as a digital public good to help defend and protect the rights of children. So we've set the scene a little bit. 93% of the world's children are breathing unsafe air today, and that results in more than 2,000 daily deaths. And these are preventable deaths. There are steps that we and our government partners can take to improve the state of air quality, but it's often hard to know where to start or if our interventions are working if we can't quantify and monitor those changes. In most of the developed world, there's already a dense network of high-cost reference-grade air quality sensors, and they provide good quality real-time information on air pollution and also allow government partners to respond with both mitigation and with targeted reduction of pollutants. Unfortunately, these sensors are very expensive to deploy. Like a single reference station can be anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000, and creating a dense enough sensor network to cover, say, the whole of Indonesia would be upwards of $1 billion if we tried to do it in the same way as we have in the example cities here. So the three that you're looking at there represent London, population 9 million, which has about 400 reference-grade sensors deployed. Bangkok metropolitan area, population 10 or 11 million with about 85. And when we started this project in Laos in 2025, there was exactly one open reference-grade sensor in the whole country. So as part of an approach to this, we wanted to explore whether or not there was an application for open source, open data, open methods, artificial intelligence to take a combination of satellite data and data from ground sensors like AirGradients and from other open sources and build a tool that could estimate daily air pollution for every village in Laos. And a couple of things I wanted to highlight about this. Open data, open source, open methods means that we have a model that is not just inspectable, but it's trustable because citizens, practitioners, government partners can look not just at the data sets that went in, but also why a model is making the decisions it is and helps to break open that black box. There's also a rights-based argument around open source, open data, open methods, in that it enables the kind of self-hosting or data sovereignty, AI sovereignty, that we really want to see more of in the world. So I'll talk through a little bit about how the model works. I won't go too deep into technical details, but I think it'll help to frame the last bit where we talk about the enablers for this. So the approach we use combines some satellite data that is provided to us through open licenses from sometimes national governments, sometimes private providers who make their data open, commercial providers who make their data open, and through those open source ground stations that Akim was discussing earlier. And so over the course of the project, starting from that one reference sensor in Laos, we went and deployed 150 of these low-cost open source sensors to 150 schools across Laos. And they form an important part of that data fusion approach of taking both satellite and ground sensors in order to come up with a daily estimate. And I wanted to highlight the role of students in promoting and understanding air quality. So one of the aims of this project was, because levels of understanding about the effects and causes of air pollution are quite low, by deploying these in schools, we're able to create a virtuous cycle of open data where students are the ones whose schools are collecting much of this data, but they're also users of and they can interact with the data. So each of the sensors that we deployed has a QR code that students can scan. You can see the air quality at your school and in the surrounding areas as well. And by providing the students with this open data, it can start to help them become those catalysts for change in their homes and communities, and they can notice, observe changes in air quality and help to advocate for mitigating the effects. So we're a little short on time. A little bit of technicals. I think we'll just say that the model itself uses entirely two sets of open data from the ground sensors and the satellite-based. We won't go too deep into it, but I will highlight the ways in which some of these open platforms have been incredible enablers. So for all of this, we rely on ground truth sensors from the OpenAQ project. OpenAQ is a non-profit organization, but they aggregate open data from a number of providers, including AirGradient, Purple Air, and some others. And that provides us with the start for a common repository of the common wealth of air quality data. And that forms one of the important inputs into this model. We also rely on some satellite-derived data sets, like the one, for instance, here shows fire hotspots, which are a particularly important factor in determining air quality, especially in regions like Thailand and Laos, which have, as Akim showed you in his photo, a really strong agricultural burning season. So how can this model drive decision-making? We're at a point now where by building on those different open data sets and training an open AI model, we're now able to predict the air quality for every village in Laos with around about 80% accuracy on a label prediction basis. So in other words, when the air quality traffic light is in the orange, about 80% of the time, our model is correctly predicting it in the orange, even in villages where we don't ever have a sensor deployed. And lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about our digital public goods philosophy. So this project was only possible because business, government, and humanitarian sector had committed to making a large quantity of their data open. And some of that comes from commercial providers like AirGradient, some of the open building footprints from Google, and much of it from government partners who have also committed to open data for things like their satellite. And our model itself, as a digital public good, is open by default, which means citizens, governments, and practitioners can see how the air quality estimates are made. They can look inside and understand how it's making the decisions that it does. And it also helps to safeguard that right to information and accountability. Transparency and rights. So by committing to doing this entirely in the open, we make sure that the users of data and the providers of data are also consumers and inspectors of that data. And lastly, the community aspect, which Akim touched on a little bit too around AirGradient. So by working as a digital public good, we're able to attract collaborators, researchers, startups, civil society, and other organizations who can take the tools that we start and build on top of them rather than an ecosystem of many siloed pilots. And last, about encouraging data and AI self-determination. So this model that we've built has been designed from the ground up that it can be hosted and run by practically anyone. So if you've got a computer, you can get the data that we've used because it's open, you can train the model because it's open, and you can generate the results for yourself, even for your own community or your own country. And by giving people the tools to do this themselves, we hope that that creates an empowering AI aspect where there isn't a mysterious corporate AI that's producing these results. It's something that you can actually take and run and use and learn about yourself. Okay, so I think that's about time for me. A quick round of thank yous. So this work was funded by the UNICEF Office of Innovation and ARM, the CPU manufacturer. And I also wanted to give a thank you to some of our friends and colleagues who couldn't be here, from the Lao Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, from the Lao Ministry of Sports and Education, from Lao Telecom, and thank you, Akim, to AirGradient for supporting the project. Cool. I think that's all for me. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Anthony. So we're going to start the Q&A session, and just as an icebreaker a little bit, I will ask the first question to Anthony, and he asked me once, and then you have some time to think about your question. I know we are a little bit over time, but so we're probably going to target to wrap up in like 7 or 8 minutes. So Anthony, first question to you. What do you see as the key benefits of working in the open as opposed to, say, purchasing a commercial solution? Is it that it's cheaper, faster, more sustainable?
I think cheaper, yes. Sorry. I think cheaper, yes. Faster, yes. More sustainable, yes. But more than anything, open source, open data, open methods is a system of coordination. So when we build on open platforms and open data, we, one, enrich the commons by adding to the ability of other people to do this, but we also prevent a lot of those problems of duplication and overlap because whatever we build is able to be built straight on top of by other people. And those like collaboration aspects that normally often happen through very complicated interagency agreements can be moved to the, I guess, the data layer or the API layer. So by working in the open, like we're not just enhancing rights, but we're also improving the way in which rights-based organizations collaborate.
Great, thanks, Anthony.
Oh, I've got a question for you too. So Akim, how do you ensure that these initiatives remain community-driven rather than dependent on external funding or being commercialized by the company?
Yeah, that's actually a really important question because obviously we are private sector, we are a profit-driven company. We have to make a profit to survive, basically. So at the moment, we are actually in a state where we set up a foundation in Switzerland to split off the non-profit activity and also transfer actually the open source code into that foundation to basically even kind of protect it from ourselves, theoretically. And I think for the first part, what's also really important is like, so we are building a platform called Clean Air Advocates that is something where like grassroots organizations or large organizations as well can use this to advocate for their cause and also potentially opens up funding channels directly to that organizations. So that's something, I think a lot of people in the room feel that global funding crunch that a lot of the big organizations face. So we feel there's a space for like a platform that enables, let's say, a more crowd-funded donation approach. So these are the two different aspects that we try to make it less dependent on, let's say, outside sources. Great. So are there any questions from the audience? Yes, please. Maybe let's start with the lady.
Good morning, everyone. Svetlana, Article 19. So just briefly, my question is actually very related to what I'm doing. I'm basically helping civil society and big techs and telecoms talk together about business and human rights principles and compliance and accountability. So my question to you, well, first of all, thank you so much for doing this. This is really important and great product you're developing, and of course helps people to have better lives at some point. But I see there will be a great, there's potential great future for this, and of course a lot of interest from the big techs, and you also mentioned some of the Google involvement and also telecoms, which might be a very critical actors when it comes to human rights due diligence and human rights impact assessment area. So my question is that, are you considering or have you considered to read or to get familiar with the risks assessments of this big tech when they come to the public digital goods implementation in the conflict zones or very risky areas? Thank you so much.
Thanks. Svetlana? Yeah, thanks. Great question. Yes, I think as a UN organization, we have a certain level of risk appetite, which I would describe as relatively low. But I think it's also important to contrast the potential for misuse with the misuse. That is, what is the enormous benefit or what is the enormous harm that could result from not using this information? And I think even though we do this through a do no harm rights-based approach, we have some tools. So I'll give a plug to my colleagues at the UN Global Pulse, who have developed the UN Global Pulse Risks, Harms and Benefits Toolkit, which provides some structured ways of thinking about these kinds of problems, of understanding both that potential for misuse and misuse, and has some mitigations. I'll drop a link in the notes for this too. And I think the overarching structure is we need to start with a do no harm approach, and we need to identify where the greatest opportunity is for that misuse, and then we need to put some a rights-based framework around how we deal with the potential for misuse. But I think there's an important balancing act there. And yeah, shout out to UN Global Pulse Risks, Harms and Benefits Toolkit, which is what we use when we start projects too, to assess our own risks internally. It's short, easy, 1.5 page, suitable for corporate and NGO.
Thank you.
Great. There was, I think, from the colleague next to you, a question.
Thank you both. It's an impressive case study. It's really amazing what you've done. My name is Indras. I'm a researcher at the Center for AI and Digital Policy. My question is regarding you mentioned that the system provides daily AQI with 80% accuracy. Do you feel that that is an acceptable level? And most importantly, how do you ensure the training data and perhaps machine reinforcement training data are of higher quality or perhaps improve the system itself? Thank you.
Thanks, Indra. Also a great question. I had to cut a couple of technical slides from the presentation, but I'm happy to share them later. Maybe I can just go back to the results. So, thanks. So the current iteration of this open model, we're getting about a 78% accuracy on the label predictor basis, so orange equals orange. But when we look at the distribution of error, we're about 94% accurate, one bucket either side. So that is, when the air quality is very bad, 80% of the time we're predicting very bad, and the other 15% of the time we're predicting bad. Big misses aren't super common in this model. In terms of what accuracy is good enough to start making good decisions, it's a good open question. Maybe Akeem will have some thoughts on this too. You know what they say, all models are wrong, but some are useful. We think at 80%, we're starting to get to the range of accuracy where we can start to use this for decision making, even if we wouldn't use it for maybe like environmental health alerts. And I think there's lots more to do in terms of getting a more accurate model, but we've also got to remember that even ground-based sensors have a range of accuracy. It's difficult to come up with an empirical truth of the exact amount of particulate matter, even with those $100,000 reference sensors. So we think it's a good first effort, and part of the spirit of open source is we release early, and we hope that the community are going to continue to work on improving the ways in which we process the training data, or maybe identifying better modeling that could get that up into the high 80s or 90s.
Thank you.
Great. Are there more questions from Anybody? Okay, good. Then let's wrap this up. So thank you for the questions and the engagement. I think what you've seen today is really proof that democratization of environmental monitoring is happening already. We saw it with the case study in Laos, for example, and that open source hardware plus open data plus open AI really gives community power. So now the question is no longer whether this works, but like, where will it work next? So we're actually working on subsequent projects, but it could also be in your community, in your country, in your organization. And we also talked about like the proprietary system. So for the businesses who are in the room here, if you are sitting on data, it could be environmental, it could be other kinds of data, like really ask yourself, like, what's more valuable, like protecting your data monopoly or improving people's life? And I think AirGradient is a great example that you can be profitable, you can be very successful with a complete open source approach. And I would really invite all the businesses here to really look into this and see if that could be a model that could also work for you, and really feel out to reach out to both of us. Like Anthony and I, we have a booth actually down at the other side of the corridor. I would love to, or we would love to really continue the conversations with you. So it could be like maybe you're interested in piloting that project in your communities, or maybe you have technical questions. I know there are some about the AI side. So yeah, please stop by and talk to us. So thank you very much for this session.